The February rain hammered against the windows as I shoved through the heavy glass doors of Luciano's, my heart pounding in my ears. Water dripped from my dark hair onto my shoulders, my carefully applied makeup smudged, and my thin jacket, completely inadequate for the downpour, clung to my shaking frame. I was already 15 minutes late for my shift. I'd been working at Luciano's for exactly 6 months and 11 days. Long enough to know the rhythm of the place. Long enough to become invisible. Michelle. Marco's voice cut through the warm buzz of the dining room before I'd even reached the staff corridor. His hand clamped around my elbow, and I felt my stomach drop. The floor manager's face was pale, his usual composure completely shattered. "Thank God you're here." "I'm sorry, the subway. Table 12. VIP. You're serving them tonight." His words came out in a rush, urgent and clipped. "What?" I stopped walking, my wet shoes squeaking on the polished floor. "But that's Angela's section." "I've never." Marco's fingers dug into my arm, pulling me behind a marble pillar where the other servers couldn't see us. His eyes were wide, almost frantic. "Angela refused. Sophia quit an hour ago. You're the only one left who hasn't served him yet, and he specifically asked for someone new. Someone who doesn't know him." The way he said him made something cold slither down my spine. "Michelle, listen to me very carefully." Marco's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "These people, this man, he's important. Very, very important. Don't make eye contact unless he speaks first. Don't ask questions. Don't do anything except serve the food and disappear." The intensity in his voice, the genuine fear flickering behind his eyes, made my mouth go dry. I nodded quickly, smoothing down my green uniform dress with trembling hands. I needed this job. Desperately. 6 months ago, I'd fled Chicago with nothing but 2 suitcases, $3,000 in cash, and a new name I'd practiced saying in the mirror until it felt real. My ex-boyfriend's escalating jealousy had turned into surveillance, then control, then something far more dangerous when I'd overheard him on a call discussing family business, the kind that ended with people disappearing. New York was supposed to be my fresh start, my chance to finally breathe. But fresh starts were expensive, and my cramped studio in Astoria devoured most of my paycheck before I could even think about building a real life. "Who is he?" I whispered, reaching for my order pad with numb fingers. Marco's gaze darted toward the main dining room, then back to me. His jaw worked for a moment before he answered. "Prisco Panicucci." The name meant nothing to me, but the way Marco said it, like he was speaking a curse, made my blood run cold. Everyone who worked at Luciano's knew the restaurant had connections. Certain tables were never questioned. Certain reservations appeared with no name attached. I'd seen men in expensive suits conduct quiet conversations over wine, their bodyguards stationed at nearby tables, and I'd learned not to look too closely, not to remember faces, not to wonder. Prisco Panicucci. I'd never heard the name, but I understood what kind of man earned that tone of voice. Some whispered he was just a wealthy businessman with old country ties. Others claimed something far darker, that his name carried weight in circles where weight meant power, violence, and absolute control. "He's at the corner table in the back," Marco said, releasing my arm. "Private. Secluded. Remember, Michelle? Professional, efficient, invisible." Invisible. That word again. It had become my entire existence since arriving in New York. Keep your head down. Blend into the background. Become forgettable. Don't let anyone look too closely. Don't let anyone see the cracks in your new identity or the fear you're still running from. I took a shuddering breath and nodded. I understand. Good. Marco's expression softened just slightly. You'll be fine. Just don't screw this up. He disappeared into the kitchen, leaving me standing in the shadows behind the pillar. I pressed my hand against my stomach, willing it to stop churning, and tucked a damp strand of hair behind my ear. Just another table. Just another shift. I pushed through the swinging doors into the main dining room. Luciano's glowed with warm amber light from the antique chandeliers, their crystal droplets casting soft patterns across white tablecloths. The scent of fresh bread and simmering marinara wrapped around me. Conversations hummed, low, intimate, punctuated by the soft clink of wine glasses and silver against porcelain. The exposed brick walls and dark wood beams gave the space an old-world elegance, like stepping into a corner of Florence transplanted to Manhattan. I wove between tables, my order pad clutched against my chest like a shield, and headed toward the back corner, toward table 12, toward Prisco Panicucci, and toward the moment that would shatter everything I'd built and change my life forever. The rest of my shift passed in a blur of mounting terror. After the phone call, after I'd answered Nana in the Calabrian dialect I'd sworn never to speak in public again, after I'd watched Prisco Panicucci's entire body go still, everything changed. I could feel his gaze tracking me across the dining room like a physical weight. Every time I returned to table 12, he watched me with unnerving focus, his expression unreadable but absolutely fixed. He barely touched his food. He just watched. By the time his party left, Prisco pressing $100 bill into my palm, his fingers lingering too long, my hands were shaking. It was nearly midnight when I grabbed my jacket from the staff locker. I just needed to get home, lock my door, figure out what to do next. Excuse me, Mississippi. I spun around. A man stood in the staff corridor, blocking the exit. Tall, broad-shouldered, expensive dark suit. His face was impassive, but his presence in the employees-only area made my heart hammer. This area is employees only, I stammered. Mr. Panicucci asked me to give you a message. His voice was calm, almost gentle, which made it worse. My throat closed. What message? He said, don't let her leave. Not tonight. Not ever. The words hit me like a fist. Not tonight. Not ever. The corridor tilted. This couldn't be happening. Not again. I'd been so careful. I'd changed everything. My name, my hair, my entire life. I'd buried every trace of who I used to be. Every connection to Chicago, to my father's world, to the violence I'd spent 6 months running from. One phone call had destroyed it all. I need to leave, I whispered. I need to go home. I'm afraid that's not possible tonight, Mississippi. The man gestured toward the dining room. Mr. Panicucci would like you to wait. Marco appeared at the corridor's end, his face pale. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Michelle, can I talk to you? I followed him into the manager's office, my legs barely holding me. He closed the door and ran a hand through his hair. What's happening? I demanded. Marco, who is that man? I know. Prisco stepped back, giving me space. But hate me alive, Michelle. Because dead, you're no use to anyone. The door opened behind me. His men waited. The meeting was over, but nothing was resolved. I was still trapped between two predators, one who wanted to use me, and one who wanted to own me. I didn't know which was worse. They came for me at dawn. I was leaving my building for an early shift when 2 men stepped from a parked van. No warning. One grabbed my arm. The other reached for my waist, hauling me toward the open door. Instinct took over. I screamed, twisting hard, my elbow connecting with ribs. The man swore in Italian, his grip loosening enough for me to wrench free. I stumbled backward, still screaming. A window above opened. Too much attention. One man leaned close, his breath hot. Teresi sends his regards. Then they were gone, the van screeching away. I barely caught my breath before a black SUV pulled up. Prisco stepped out, his face a mask of controlled fury. Two men followed, scanning the street with lethal focus. Inside. Now. His hand was on my back. I'm fine, I don't need. Inside, Michelle. I got in. Prisco slid beside me, jaw tight, hands clenched. He didn't speak until we were moving. Are you hurt? Surprisingly gentle. I shook my head. They didn't, I got away. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. He pulled out his phone, speaking rapid Italian. I caught fragments, names, locations, orders delivered with absolute authority. 3 calls. Each shorter, more brutal. 20 minutes later, his phone rang. He listened, expression darkening. Bene.
Good. He looked at me.
What happened? I whispered. The men who touched you have been addressed.
Calm.
Matter of fact. They won't be reporting back to Teresi. Mr. Panicucci has requested that you serve his table exclusively from now on, Marco said quietly. Every time he dines here. Only you. The room spun.
No.
I can't, Michelle. Marco finally met my gaze, genuine fear in his eyes. This isn't a request. Men like Prisco Panicucci don't make requests. Men like Prisco Panicucci. I understood exactly what kind of man he was now. I'd seen that look before. The look of someone who decided I was his, who believed he had the right to claim me, control me. I'd run from that look once. I'd given up everything to escape it. And now I was trapped again. But this time, the man wearing it was infinitely more dangerous than my ex-boyfriend had ever been. This time, there was nowhere left to run. Prisco Panicucci returned to Luciano's 3 days later. Then again 2 nights after that. Then again. He came 3 times a week like clockwork, always requesting table 12, always requesting me. I tried desperately to maintain normalcy, smiling at other customers, pretending my hands didn't shake when I approached his table. But normal had become impossible. He never said much. A polite thank you when I brought his wine. A slight nod at the specials. But his eyes, dark, intelligent, focused, never left me. The weight of his gaze followed me everywhere, tracked every movement. It wasn't predatory. It was calculating. Protective. Possessive. Like he was memorizing me, claiming something he'd already decided belonged to him. It was suffocating. But Prisco wasn't the only one watching. I first noticed the unfamiliar men on a Thursday night. 2 of them, standing across from Luciano's as I left my shift, faces obscured by shadow. They didn't approach. They just watched. When I turned toward the subway, one followed. The next night, a different man. Leaner, younger, leather jacket. He stood outside the bodega near my apartment, smoking, eyes tracking me as I hurried past. Then another. And another. None of them were Prisco's men. I'd learned to recognize his people, sharp suits, professional demeanor, quiet authority. These men were different. Rougher. More aggressive. They wanted me to know they were watching. The black car appeared on a Monday. The casual way he said it, addressed, made my blood run cold. Someone had paid. Violently. Because of me. You killed them. I protected you. No apology. Just fact. I stared at this man who'd just ordered executions like arranging dinner. The same man whose eyes held something almost tender when he looked at me. This is real, I said. Teresi. The danger. All of it. Yes. And you're the only thing stopping him. Yes. The truth settled over me like a weight. I'd spent days hating Prisco for trapping me, destroying my life. But he hadn't been exaggerating. The threat was real. Without his protection, I'd already be dead or worse. We're not going back to your apartment, Prisco said. I'm moving you to a safe house tonight. My men will retrieve what you need, but you won't be returning. I don't have a choice, do I? His expression softened slightly. No, Kara, you don't. That night, I stood in an unfamiliar bedroom in an unfamiliar house outside the city, wearing the same clothes from that morning. No belongings. No plan. Nothing but the clothes on my back and the terrifying realization that my life now belonged to Prisco Panicucci, whether I wanted it to or not. I was riding the N train home, exhausted and jittery. The subway car was half empty. I was staring at my phone when I glanced up and saw him, a man in a dark coat near the doors. He'd gotten on at my stop. When I shifted, his eyes flicked toward me, then quickly away. Too quickly. My pulse spiked. At the next stop, I moved toward the opposite doors. He didn't follow. But when the train pulled into Astoria Boulevard, he stepped off behind me. I walked faster. He matched my pace. When I reached the stairs, I ran, taking them two at a time. At street level, I saw it. A black sedan idling at the curb, engine running, tinted windows gleaming. The train doors were closing. Without thinking, I threw myself back through them, squeezing through as they sealed shut. The man lunged forward, his hand slamming against the glass, face twisted in frustration. The train pulled away. I collapsed against the nearest pole, gasping. Someone else was watching me. Someone who wasn't Prisco. Someone who wanted something badly enough to follow, to hunt, to corner me. That night, sitting on my apartment floor with my back against the locked door, I considered running. New city, new name, new life. Again. But as I stared at my empty suitcase, the same one I'd packed in Chicago 6 months ago, I realized the truth. I had nowhere left to go. No money for another escape. No energy to rebuild from nothing again. And no guarantee that whoever was hunting me wouldn't find me anyway. I was trapped between two predators, and I didn't even know why. 3 days later, Prisco agreed to let me retrieve essentials from my apartment.
Quickly, he said.
My men will secure the building first. We drove through Queens in a 3-car convoy, me and Prisco in the middle SUV, his men flanking us. The street was quiet, residential, familiar. Too familiar. I should have known. We were 2 blocks away when the first shot shattered the windshield. The driver's head snapped back, blood sprang. Our SUV swerved wildly. More gunfire erupted. Rapid, deafening cracks that made my ears ring. Glass exploded around us. I screamed, frozen in terror as our vehicle slammed into a parked car. Get down. Prisco threw himself over me, his body a shield, driving me to the floor. His weight pressed me into the leather seat, his chest against my back. I couldn't breathe.
Couldn't think.
The world was nothing but gunfire and shattering glass and the acrid smell of smoke. Prisco shifted above me, his arm extending. 3 precise shots. Someone outside screamed. He was returning fire while covering me, his body the only thing between me and the bullets tearing through metal and glass. Stay down, he commanded, his voice deadly calm despite the chaos. Through the shattered window, I glimpsed figures in dark clothing. Torrisi's men, surrounding us. One of Prisco's SUVs was riddled with bullet holes, steam hissing from the hood. I heard shouting in Italian, more gunfire, the wet thud of someone hitting pavement. Prisco grabbed his phone, barking orders. The rear SUV roared forward, ramming into the attacker's vehicle. More shots. A man collapsed 10 feet away, his chest blooming red. We're leaving. Prisco hauled me up, his hand iron around my wrist.
Now.
Your men. Now, Michelle. He dragged me from the wreckage. 2 of his men were down, one clutching his shoulder, another not moving. The third provided cover fire as Prisco shoved me into the intact SUV. We peeled away, leaving behind the carnage, the bodies, the violence. I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Blood, not mine, was smeared across my jacket. Prisco's blood, maybe, or the driver's. I couldn't tell. Couldn't process. We're not going back to the safe house, Prisco said, his phone already to his ear. We're leaving New York. Tonight.
What?
No, I can't. Torrisi just declared war. His eyes were cold, focused. New York isn't safe anymore. We're going to Italy. Everything happened too fast. The drive to a private airfield in New Jersey. The sleek jet waiting on the tarmac, engines already running. Prisco's remaining men rushing us aboard, their faces grim, weapons visible. I stumbled up the stairs in a daze, still wearing my blood-stained jacket, still shaking. The door sealed. The engines roared. Through the window, I watched the lights of the city blur past as we accelerated down the runway. The summons came on a Friday night. 2 of Prisco's men appeared as I wiped down tables after close. The taller one gestured toward the back hallway. "Mr. Panicucci would like to speak with you." It wasn't a request. They escorted me past the kitchen to a private room I'd never noticed. Heavy wooden door. No windows. One of them opened it, and I stepped inside. Prisco stood by a small bar cart, pouring amber liquid into glasses. He'd removed his suit jacket, his burgundy vest fitted over a crisp white shirt. In the lamplight, he looked less like the silent observer and more like what he truly was, a man accustomed to absolute control. "Sit, please." I remained standing. "What do you want?" He studied me, then set down both glasses. "The dialect you spoke. Calabrian. Very specific. Very old. It marks you as connected to old families, Michelle. Families with deep roots in a world you've been trying to leave behind." My blood turned to ice. "I don't know what your father was Antonio Rossi. Chicago outfit. Died 3 years ago." Prisco's eyes never left mine. "You changed your name. Dyed your hair.
Ran.
Smart." He knew. He knew everything. "How did you?" "The moment you answered that call, I knew you were someone worth knowing. So I looked." He swirled his glass. "Unfortunately, I wasn't the only one listening. Enzo Torrisi, my rival, heard about you. He believes you're valuable leverage against me." "Leverage?" My voice cracked. "I'm nobody. I'm a waitress." "You stopped being nobody the moment I decided you were mine." The words came with unsettling calm. "Torrisi will use you to hurt me. He'll take you, torture you, kill you to prove he can." Terror and rage collided in my chest. "Then leave me alone. If you just ignored me." "It's too late for that."
No.
I backed toward the door. "I escaped this life once. I gave up everything, my name, my family, my entire world, to get away from men who thought they could control me. I won't do this again. Not with you. Not with anyone." Prisco moved toward me, steady. "Michelle. Stay away from me. I'm not your property. I'm not your responsibility. I'm not. You don't have a choice anymore." His voice was quiet, absolute. "Torrisi will kill you to hurt me. I won't let that happen."
Why?
I demanded, tears burning. "Why do you even care?" Something flickered in his eyes, something almost vulnerable. "Because when you answered that phone in the language of my grandmother, speaking words I hadn't heard since I was a boy, you became real to me. And I protect what's mine. I'm not yours. You are. No anger. No force. Just certainty. Whether you accept it or not, you're caught between Torrisi and me. The only question is whether you'll let me keep you alive." I stared at this man who destroyed my carefully built life, who spoke of ownership like devotion, who looked at me like I was something precious and dangerous. "I hate you," I whispered. "New York. My apartment.
My job.
The carefully constructed life I'd built from nothing, brick by brick, lie by lie. All of it disappearing below me as we climbed into the dark sky. I was leaving behind everything I'd fought to create, everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd been, and I had no idea if I'd ever return." Prisco sat across from me, his suit jacket torn, a cut above his eyebrow, his hands steady as he poured whiskey into 2 glasses. "Drink," he said quietly. I took the glass. My hands were still covered in blood that wasn't mine. We landed in Florence just after dawn. Another car, another armed escort. The Italian countryside blurred past, rolling hills, cypress trees, morning light painting everything gold. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like a dream I couldn't wake from. Prisco's estate appeared after an hour of mountain roads. An ancient stone fortress on a hillside, surrounded by vineyards and olive groves. Walls thick enough to withstand sieges, softened by centuries into something almost peaceful. Almost. I moved through the house like a ghost. Marble floors, frescoed ceilings, rooms that echoed. An elderly housekeeper guided me to a suite larger than my entire queen's apartment. French doors opened onto a balcony overlooking the valley, endless green, red-roofed villages, distant mountains. Beautiful, yes? She said in accented English. I nodded, unable to speak. It was breathtaking, and it felt like a gilded cage. She left. I stood at the window in my blood-stained clothes, trying to reconcile reality. 12 hours ago, bullets had torn through glass. I'd watched a man die. I'd felt Prisco covering me, felt his gunshots through his chest pressed against mine. Now I stood in paradise, and I couldn't stop shaking. I should have been grateful. I was alive, safe. But all I felt was fury, at Prisco for dragging me into his war, at Teresi for hunting me, at myself for answering that phone call. Days blurred. I stayed in my suite, emerging only for meals I barely touched. Prisco gave me space, but his presence was inescapable. I'd see him walking the grounds at dawn, phone to his ear. Watch him meet stern-faced men in black cars. Notice his eyes drifting toward my window, checking. Always checking. He knew exactly where I was. One afternoon, I found him in the garden among lemon trees. He looked up, expression unreadable. You're keeping me prisoner, I said. I'm keeping you alive. He gestured to the stone bench. Sit. I remained standing. What's the difference? The difference, Kara, is that prisoners don't choose to leave. You can. But if you leave, you die. Utterly calm. So yes, perhaps it's a prison. But it's one where you wake up every morning. I hated how reasonable he sounded. How right he was. I don't even know you. You will. That terrified me most. Not the violence. Not the danger. But the slow realization that I was entirely dependent on this man, a man whose world was built on blood and power, who killed without hesitation, who dragged me into his war without asking. A man who looked at me like I was something precious. I turned toward the house, unable to face him longer. Behind me, he called softly, Michelle. I didn't stop. But I didn't run either, because there was nowhere left to run to. Days passed. I began to notice things, the way Prisco spoke to Maria, the housekeeper. Gentle, asking about her arthritis, insisting she sit while he made espresso. How he crouched to examine a drawing the groundskeeper's daughter made, praising her with genuine warmth. These glimpses of softness disrupted everything I'd decided about him. Then one morning Maria knocked. Signora, you have a visitor. I froze. No one knew I was here. Nana. She stood in the entrance hall, small and fragile in black, her face breaking into tears. I ran to her, collapsing into her arms, sobbing. Come via mia cara? Her hands cupped my face. You're safe. Grazie a Dio. How did you? I looked up. Prisco stood at the stairs, watching. I thought you might want family, he said simply. Something cracked open in my chest. He'd protected my Nana. Brought her here. Kept her safe when I couldn't. That evening, after Nana retired, I found Prisco on the terrace. He poured wine, handing me a glass. Thank you, I said quietly. For her. He nodded. Silence settled as we watched the sun bleed orange across the valley. My father was murdered when I was 16, Prisco said suddenly. Shot in our family's restaurant. I watched him die on the floor where I'd eaten dinner every night. I looked at him, this man who'd revealed nothing until now. I had a choice. Run like you did. Or stay and become what this world demanded. His jaw tightened. I chose to stay. I became the man who ensures no one touches what's mine ever again. That's why you protect me? Yes. Because I understand what it costs to lose someone. And I decided I won't pay that price again. I took a long drink, gathering courage. My father was Antonio Rossi. Chicago outfit. I grew up knowing what he was. My ex-boyfriend wanted in, started using me to get close to my father's connections. When I tried to leave, he got violent. Said I belonged to him. My voice broke. I finally ran after you put me in the hospital. I've been running ever since. Prisco's expression darkened. You're not running anymore, he said.
No.
Now I'm just trapped in a different cage. Is that what you think this is? He leaned forward. Michelle, I'm not keeping you here because I own you. I'm keeping you here because letting you die isn't something I can live with. The distinction felt important. He reached out slowly, his hand hovering near my face. A question. Permission asked with dark, steady eyes. I didn't pull away. His fingers touched my cheek. Gentle, reverent. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone I could protect from a distance. Someone I wouldn't. He stopped, withdrew his hand. It doesn't matter. But it did matter. Because sitting there in fading light, I realized what I felt wasn't fear. It was something far more dangerous. Something that made my pulse quicken when he looked at me. Something that made me want to lean into his touch instead of fleeing. I was beginning to want this cage. The evening was warm, air heavy with lemon blossoms. Candles flickered among the trees in Prisco's private garden, casting shadows across stone. We'd been talking for hours, the conversation deepening into something raw. He told me about his mother's death, the loneliness of power. I told him about the girl I'd been before running. Then he said something that stopped my heart. You're free to leave, Michelle. I stared at him across the table. I'll ensure your safety. Set you up anywhere in the world. New identity, new life, enough money that you'll never run again. His voice was steady. But I won't keep you prisoner. I won't be another man who traps you. The words should have filled me with relief. Freedom. The thing I'd been craving. Instead, I felt only panic. What if I don't want to leave? The whisper escaped before I could stop it. Prisco went very still.
What?
I stood, my chair scraping stone. The truth crystallized with startling clarity. I spent 6 months building a safe life in New York. New name, new hair, new everything. I thought safety meant being invisible, being alone, being someone no one could truly know. My voice shook. But I was never safe. I was just hiding. Michelle. You see me, Prisco. All of me. You know who my father was, what I ran from, the dialect that marks me. And you still. I still what? You still chose me. Not the mask. Not the lies.
Me.
Tears burned. The safety I was looking for was never about location or anonymity. It was about being truly seen and still chosen. His hand cupped my face. Then choose me back. Under the Tuscan stars, surrounded by candlelight and lemon trees, I made my choice. I kissed him. No hesitation, no fear, just certainty. He responded immediately, pulling me close. The kiss deepened, years of loneliness dissolving between us. Are you sure? He murmured against my lips. Yes. We made love there in the garden, on soft grass beneath ancient trees, sealing the commitment we'd both been circling. His touch was reverent, possessive, tender. Every caress felt like a vow. Afterward, tangled together under the stars, I whispered in Italian, the language of my grandmother, of the truth I'd buried. Selgo questo. Selgo ti. I choose this. I choose you. Prisco's arms tightened, his voice rough with emotion. Then I am yours.
Completely.
Until my last breath. Not a cage. Not a prison. Not a trap. Home. I'd spent my whole life running from dangerous men. I never imagined I'd find safety in the arms of the most dangerous, one of all. But here, in Prisco's fierce world, I finally understood. True safety wasn't about hiding. It was about being known, chosen, and fiercely protected by someone who'd burn the world down before letting it touch you. I was done running. I was finally home. 6 months later, Nana passed peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by lemon trees and family. I held her hand as the sun rose over the valley, whispering prayers in Calabrian. She'd spent her final months in beauty and peace, exactly as she deserved. I grieved, but there was comfort in knowing she'd been safe, loved, protected. 1 year after that first night in the garden, News reached us from Naples. Enzo Torrisi's organization had crumbled under pressure from multiple families. His body was found in a warehouse, officially the work of rivals. Prisco said nothing when I asked, but I saw the answer in his eyes. The threat was over. Definitively, finally over. 18 months in, I transformed part of the estate into a foundation, Casa Nuova New House, helping women flee dangerous situations. Women like I'd been. We gave them new identities, safe passage, resources to rebuild. My past redeemed through action. Prisco funded it without question, understanding what it meant to turn pain into purpose. 2 years after I'd first chosen him, we married. The ceremony was private, intimate, just our closest circle gathered in the garden at sunset. I wore a simple white dress, wildflowers woven into my dark hair. Prisco stood waiting in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, and when I reached him, his eyes were bright with emotion. He spoke his vows in Italian, his voice rough. You were never meant to be mine.
But you chose me anyway.
You took my broken world and made it beautiful. I vow to protect you, to see you, to choose you every day until my last breath and beyond. I answered in Calabrian, the dialect that had started everything. You gave me something I never thought I'd find, a home built not on hiding, but on being known. I choose you. Today, tomorrow, always. Now, standing on our bedroom terrace as twilight painted the valley purple and gold, I reflected on the impossible journey. 2 years since that phone call in Luciano's. 2 years since the moment that should have destroyed me, but somehow saved me instead.
My phone rang.
A friend from Casa Nuova. Pronto, I answered in fluent Italian, laughing at something she said about the new arrivals. Prisco's arms wrapped around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. He was smiling. I could feel it. What? I asked after ending the call.
You.
He turned me to face him, answering calls in Italian without fear. Running a foundation. Standing here in your true name, your true self. His thumb brushed my cheek. You're not hiding anymore, Cara. No, I whispered. I'm not. The girl who'd fled Chicago with fake documents and dyed hair felt like someone from another lifetime. That girl had believed safety meant invisibility, that survival required erasing yourself piece by piece until nothing threatening remained. She'd been wrong.
True safety wasn't about hiding.
It was about being fully, completely known by someone who'd burned the world down before letting it touch you. It was about finding home not in a place, but in a person who saw your darkness and chose you anyway. Prisco kissed my forehead, pulling me closer. Below us, the estate glowed with warm light. Our home. Our fortress. Our beginning. That phone call in Italian had frozen a Mafia boss and changed my life forever. But not the way I'd feared. It hadn't destroyed me. It had led me home.